Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, Tuesday night edition, first week of February 2025. Have you ever had one of those days? Well, I've had 2 days this week already, and it's only Tuesday, of, we'll call them failures. They're all my own fault. That's the best part. And at some point, you're supposed to learn from your mistakes. That's all you can do, right? So what happened? Well, for starters, my fuel log that I built last week had most all the elements for success, with the exception of it was damaged on both ends. The piece wasn't real nice, and I should have left it a little bit longer. And what happened is when I bored it out on this end, 9/16 all the way through. 9/16 is the tap size for 3/8 National Pipe Thread, NPT. The hole all the way in the back was into the bulkhead that I didn't drill all the way through. I only went through with the 21/64 for 1/8" pipe tap. So when I tapped down 3/8 NPT, that tap didn't go in quite far enough. Pipe thread is tapered, and one fitting was sitting higher than the rest of them, so I thought I'd fix it by tightening it up a little bit. That's when it obviously galled, the threads galled, and then I couldn't move it, and then had a 4-foot pipe on it and broke the fitting off. And this becomes a paperweight. It's okay. I have received lines that I think are going to work. I now have the 24-inch lines going to the front throttle body, and the 30-inch lines go to the back. I think everything's going to work out. But I have to make a new fuel log. So last night, after work, whatever it was, in the evening, I had located a piece of this on eBay, was just about to push the button when my buddy Charlie called, said, hey, I got 3 feet of that octagon, it's not octagon, hexagon aluminum rod, bar technically, I guess, hexagon aluminum bar, 1.5 inches. If you need to make any more fuel logs, I said, I need to make one right now. I'm actually buying a piece, so I didn't buy it, and tomorrow I'm going to take him to lunch, and I'll have my piece of bar, and I'll build another one. I'm going to make it a little bit longer, and I may have to, I'm going to spread the fittings out, and it's possible some of these might need 90-degree fittings or 45, so that's okay. Version 2 coming up. But that wasn't the worst of it. This is just, I built the part, it didn't work out. Oh well, move on. So that was yesterday afternoon. I had an hour and a half or so last night to come out in the shop, and all I had done in the video last Friday, I had set the cab over the frame, but it wasn't actually touching it, and the lift was holding up the cab. I had the lift arms under the rocker panels. So I come up with 4 pieces of 3/16 steel, and I put it under the pinch well on the cab, front and back, where it intersected with the frame. Roughly set the cab on the frame, put the lift under the frame, picked it up so I could work on it. Got a good look at it, got this, deciding how I was going to attach everything. And I realized that there's a few useful holes in the cab, mainly right along the rocker panel. I was going to make a bracket to attach to the side of the rocker. That's typically how you do a tube chassis vehicle, is you run the outrigger right into the rocker panel. And I could have done that. You actually drill a 1 5/8 hole and again, run it right into the rocker panel. And when you're ready to attach the body for real, you weld it right on. But I knew I needed outriggers off the frame to accept the roll cage I'm going to put in it. So I got looking, and there's some nice reinforced holes. I mean, this is all beautiful stuff. And there's a few holes in the back out of the way of anything I'm going to do. And I'm gonna cut at least the center of the floor out. It's kind of nice over on the sides, and the frame does fit underneath. I'm gonna put my rocker bars under the floor. I'm making this more difficult because if I cut out the entire floor, mock up the roll cage, simply pick the chassis, body off the chassis. Now I'll have to pick it up just enough to weld the top and put it back on. That's okay. We'll work around that. Everything's gonna be pretty straight, so the main hoop is gonna be pretty simple looking, I think, so I'll be able to lift it straight up pretty decent. And so I came out last night and I goofed around measuring, and every time I moved the cab, I'd get it even on the front, it'd be crooked on the back. Had to get it leveled. You can see I got some plumb bobs. I got my center line of the chassis established. Got some plumb bobs hanging down. That's just holding the center one. Marked a few things. Was able to get it perfectly centered. And that's where I left it last night. So today I had an idea. The front mounts are going to be completely different from the back. But I had an idea to make the front ones out of all junk under my bench. I have some old scrap 1 5/8. It's mild steel I use for the outriggers. I'm not sure if I'm going to build a cage out of mild steel or chrome moly yet, but the box tubing is already mild steel. The chassis itself, if I went whole hog, is only going to cert for 750 ET. If I went with a funny car cage, most likely it's just going to have an 850 cage. I still might make the main part of the cage out of moly. I'm not sure yet, but either way, the outriggers, I had a nice piece kicking around. So I cut the front pieces, measured a piece of tubing to go up through the existing bolt hole. Got some washers that would fit the bolt and space it. There's not going to be any kind of insulators. There could be. I could put a little nylon washer on there if I wanted to, I suppose, but that's probably not a concern, mounting the cab solid. So I got all the pieces cut for both sides. They're identical side to side, which reinforced the fact I had everything centered really nice. I mean, string doesn't lie. And this is where things went wrong. This afternoon after lunch, I had all the pieces cut, all the holes drilled. All I had to do was weld it. I was going to TIG weld it. It's always good to practice. It's nice and neat and clean. So I said, well, I'm going to put all the pieces in the lathe and shine them up nice. So it's going to look really nice when I weld it. I chucked it up in the lathe, grabbed my piece of emery paper that I just polished aluminum with last week. So all I did is bury small shards of aluminum into my steel. It looked nice and shiny, never even gave it a thought until I lit up the torch for the first time just to tack the first piece together, and it's like I didn't have any gas. So I'd go a little bit and get a fizzle, and it would ruin my tungsten. So all you can do at that point is to clean it more, and it haunted me. I literally had to do, and I'll show you the piece, 3 little welds on a piece of 3/4 tubing through the 1 5/8 tubing. And I spent 2 hours doing it. I had to grind out the bad spot and try to cover it up. And yeah, the washers themselves that are up against the floor, again, I'm going to show it to you. I ground all the material off those, but I would expect those to put up a little bit of a fight. But the tubing should have been a home run, but it's a nice reminder to me. In this case, I thought I was doing a good thing by cleaning the metal ahead of time, but I didn't have pure, clean material. In fact, the flat disc I was using when I was grinding had undercoating on it and stuff like that. For when I was grinding a little spot in the cab last night, I had ground aluminum with it, building the fuel log. I mean, I contaminated the entire mess, and I paid the price. It almost ruined the parts and had to start over. Not expensive things, because it's just junk from under the bench, but at this point I had half a day into it, which, if you're having a car built somewhere at a professional shop, and I'm not, at a level to charge for my professional fabrication, never will at this point. Everything that happens is so, regardless of how efficient that guy is or woman is that's doing it, man, it's just, I hesitate to, I can never afford to do anything if I had to pay the amount of time it took just to build these cab mounts. So I'm thankful, and that's the whole theme of my channel, is to try to do it yourself if you can. I do that out of necessity. I make mistakes. Hopefully I retain, you know, I knew when I tapped that 3 out of 4 holes in that fuel log that one of them was slightly different. Should have been a sign right there. Before I tapped the end, I should have ran the drill bit in further so I could sink the other one deep enough. But live and learn. Now I know that's not going to work. And I'm going to be extra careful when I go to attach the roll cage. The front bar that comes, you know, around by the A-pillar is going to land on that outrigger. I sanded them up today before I welded them on or tacked them on to the frame, but I'm going to go over them again to make sure when I actually go to attach the roll cage I don't have any problems. So I am happy to say that, again, I built them identical on the bench and was able to put them on the cab, and everything fit perfect height-wise. That's what this plumb bob is here on this line. When I tilt the cab, that moves, so I know when I'm hitting the string, the cab is level. Tomorrow I have to build back ones. I haven't dreamed up what they're going to look like yet, but I'll show you what I got and then say goodbye. So let me grab the camera and we'll go on tour. Sorry about the shadow, but again, the simplest little mount, I just have it tacked on the frame with the MIG welder because I had to dig out the MIG welder to save that upper washer weld. It just kept popping with the TIG, so I MIG welded around it and that covered it up. But again, the simplest little weld, got a piece of 3/4 tubing going up through, a long bolt. I needed to space the cab up, so that's why I used that piece. And should have been simple, got difficult in a hurry. This cross member's coming out. It's just, right now, I got my center line knocked on it. And the pinion is centered, so that's handy. I just ran a plumb bob through the yoke. It's just hanging there for weight. It was definitely frustrating, more so because there's nobody to blame but myself. I mean, there's nobody to blame otherwise, because I'm the only one here. But, you know, when you know better, you know, simple best practices in both cases, I overlooked and ignored, thought it would be okay, like it usually is. Oh well. So tomorrow, or tonight, I'm going to stare at the rear mount. That's the fun of building stuff. I have no idea what it's going to look like. I want it to be useful and practical. The only flaw in the front ones is I used a really long bolt. You know, if I was really concerned about weight, I would have chose a smaller, shorter way to do it bolt-wise, but I don't think those 2 bolts are going to matter, and I had them right in stock. So that's it for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in a few days.